Hi there, hope you're doing really well. And if you are stateside, that you've had a nice Labor Day. It is Labor Day here, so we've seen that there hasn't been as much questions and comments, etc., which is nice. Everybody's a lot of people are having a day off, and so was I. But I wanted to answer a few questions so that those who had those questions don't have to wait so long, and also so we make sure we have enough time for questions that come in during the week for Friday when Coach Michael is back. So with that said, let's just jump in here and look at a question from Jacinto, which I forgot last Friday. So sorry about that, Jacinto. Let's look at this one now. Okay, Coach, no problem. That was when I was apologizing for forgetting the questions. My question is just the same, because I have this weird physical symptoms. I've been taking antidepressants and pregabalin for weeks now. I can sleep because of my meds, and I can't sleep on my own. Thank you, Coach. I've been experiencing insomnia for 5 months, Coach. I'm just lucky because my meds are effective. I watch your videos and I'll learn from it. All right, so first of all, Jacinto, I want to say this, that I'm thankful for the questions, and also I'm happy that you are sleeping well at this point. That is great. I'm very, very happy to hear that. And to kind of fully answer the question, we need to talk a little bit about like the basics of sleep, a little bit of sleep physiology here. For those of you who are, are familiar with the channel, you already know where I'm going. I'm going towards the gas and brake model. And I think it's this really, really nice model. And not just because I didn't invent sleep drive or hyperarousal, but I think I came up with the sleeping, gas and brake thing. So I kind of like it. I'm partial towards it for that reason, but I think it's really practical. So let's talk about that. So I really believe there are only 2 things that you really need to understand to get to a place where you sleep well and to understand sleep. Understanding is always the key. When there's no mystery, you sleep better. So what is this gas and brake model? Well, let's imagine a car actually, and imagine that this car has like a gas pedal and a brake pedal. And let's imagine that the gas pedal is the thing that makes it go. And in regards to sleep here, the gas pedal is the thing that makes you sleep, sends you off into sleep and keeps you sleeping, okay? And then imagine this car also has a brake pedal, and that brake pedal is the thing that keeps the car still or stops the car, or going back to sleep again, the thing that keeps you from falling asleep or keeps waking up, keeps you awake at night. That's the brake. So now we have a gas and a brake, okay? We have a car with a gas and a brake. Now, what is it? What's that thing that makes you sleep, that kind of pushes the gas down? Well, that is sleep drive or sleepiness or sleep pressure or sleep debt. Like it has many names, but really it's that thing that makes you sleep. It's sleep drive or sleepiness, okay? And it's very intuitively very easy to understand this one. The longer you've been awake, the sleepier you become, the more of a sleep drive you have, and that helps you sleep. That's the gas, the thing that makes the car go, the thing that makes you sleep. Okay, that's our gas, our sleep drive. Now, we have that brake again. What's that brake? Well, that brake is what we call hyperarousal. It's when we are in an emotionally like alert state. It's a state of anticipation. Something's about to happen, and our body, our brains make sure we're ready for that thing. Mostly hyperarousal is triggered when it comes to insomnia by kind of anxiety, stress, fear, worry, those type of things. But hyperarousal can also come from excitement, like a kid before their birthday. They can't sleep. They're so excited. They're hyper-aroused, So that's it. That's the gas and the brake. The gas makes us sleep. The brake keeps us from sleeping. So when you are in this situation, like full gas, no brake, you'll sleep really well. When you have a lot of brake, no gas, you won't sleep at all. You'll be up literally all night. When insomnia, you have this one. You are sleepy to some degree. You have some sleep debt. You have sleep drive, but you also have hyperarousal. So it becomes, if you go back to the car again, imagine somebody who just can't drive. It's just like a little bit forward and then stop and then go and very, very erratic. So, that's somebody who like sometimes falls asleep, but wakes up shortly after, takes a long time, falls back asleep, wakes up again, a typical insomnia pattern. So now what's going on with somebody that, let's say, is sleeping well and is taking medication? Well, we've learned one thing here. The gas. Sleep drive can only be produced by wakefulness. The only thing that can make you sleepy is wakefulness. For anybody who's like skeptical and says, no, I think this medication, this herb or something like that is making me sleepy, it's making you sedated. It can make you kind of like calm or slow. Your thought process kind of slows down, but it can't make you sleep. Imagine somebody took clonazepam, let's say, every 6 hours as an example. Would that person sleep all the time? No, they would not. They would actually sleep, they would reach their kind of sleep potential, but not sleep any more than that, because their body wouldn't want more sleep. They would just be kind of feeling sedated. And I'm just bringing this up to show you that medications cannot make you sleep. Only your sleep drive can make sleep happen. So when somebody's sleeping while taking medication, that has nothing to do with sleep drive or making you sleep, okay? So what's up with medications? Why is it that a lot of people take them and then end up sleeping more or sleeping better? It has to do with the break, with the hyperarousal. So medications can reduce hyperarousal. 2 ways that can do that. Short little extra insight here is that emotions, like anxiety, for example, is produced by thoughts. Thoughts produce our emotions. So how can something reduce hyperarousal? It has to change our thoughts, okay? And there are 2 ways medications can do that. Either medications can make you so sedated that you can't even form coherent thoughts, including those thoughts that produce anxiety. So then the medications kind of reduce the hyperarousal and allow sleep to happen. That's somebody who like drinks so much alcohol that they're completely inebriated and kind of fall asleep. They can't even form a coherent thought. That's one way medications can reduce hyperarousal. And then we have the second one, which is the belief in them. You take this medication and you're like, you're so confident it will help you. You have such a belief in it that your thoughts change from, I'm not going to be able to sleep, to, I'm sure I will sleep. You feel like less hyperaroused and your sleep drive kicks in. You have no break and you sleep well. Okay. So my point here is, one, medications cannot make you sleep. When you are sleeping well, taking medications, it is for those 2 reasons we talked about. And I believe that the main reason always is the belief. I think the chemical thing in your brain, the sedating effect from medications, yeah, they can produce some reduction in hyperarousal by kind of muting your thoughts, but mainly when somebody sleeps while taking medications, it is the confidence in them, the belief, the thought changes that they produce. So how is this helpful to know for somebody that is taking medication and sleeping well? Well, I think it is a great opportunity now to internalize sleep confidence, to take ownership of every minute, hour, second that you've ever slept, and say, my body did that, nothing else. That was produced by my body, okay? And so when you do that, you realize that the things you're taking, supplements, medications, etc., they aren't making you sleep. Your own body did that. So you can start taking that confidence from the outside into the inside. And I think that is, when you're sleeping well, no matter what you're taking, it's a great opportunity to do that. Now, if somebody is on a medication or taking a supplement or something like that, and they're sleeping great, and there's no conflict about taking that supplement or medication, then why change it? If you're completely comfortable taking pregabalin, gabapentin, whatever it is, forever or indefinitely, you can do that. But it's always good to know that it doesn't make you sleep. And that's good to know, because that's time when there's some extra stress or something, and you end up having a sleepless night. Even when you took that medication, you don't go looking for another one. You don't go, oh, it stopped working, because it never worked. It never made you sleep. So when you have trouble sleeping again, you don't go looking for an increased dosage or another medication or change or something like that. You just go, oh, I was more stressed, or I was hyperaroused for some reason, and that's why I didn't sleep. And then there's no mystery, and you soon enough, you keep doing what you're doing. You don't react too much to the sleepless night. You don't change medication or dosage or anything. You soon sleep well again. Now, on the flip side, if somebody's like, I actually don't want to take a medication, well, then it's great in that situation to internalize sleep confidence. And then when it's time to come off the medication, it never made you sleep. So that's a little spiel on that one. Let's see if I don't know if I actually answered the question yet, but I think I did. Yes. So we've talked about how medications don't produce sleep, and when we can just do one more thing here, which is When somebody does this one and says, let me see what happens if I don't take my medication, and then ends up not sleeping at all, because of what we just talked about, we have two explanations for that. One is that the chemicals are no longer in your brain, so you don't have that muting of thoughts, the kind of sedating effect of it. And we also have, you no longer have the confidence. And depending on many things, I after my conversation with Jim on the channel here, I'm kind of, maybe changing my message, but I think still, I do believe still that when that happens, when somebody does not take their medication and have a completely sleepless night, that is more than anything to do with, knowing that you don't take it, like the lack of confidence that you didn't take that thing, and you're like, I didn't take it, I'm not going to sleep at all, but let's see, I'm trying to sleep without it, let's see how it goes. Whenever you do it as a trial, you kind of, let me see if I can sleep without it. It produces so much self-monitoring, so much checking what's going on, the time, how long I've been awake, what's going to happen. You wonder about the future. Should I take it again? Should I take half of it? What if I never can stop taking? All those thoughts produce so much hyperarousal that you can't sleep. So I look at rebound insomnia really, really primarily as a proof of lack of confidence, and believing that you need something else rather than anything else. So sometimes people forget to take their sleep medications and sleep well, but still believe that they can't sleep without it. So that's a little extra thought there. So I think I just want to explain why that rebound insomnia happens. Okay, so Jacinto, I want to say, any follow-up questions, please let me know. And with that said, let's move on to Jeff's question. So these are actually 3 emails from Jeff, who has contributed with questions in the past. And by the way, he's coming on as a podcast guest somewhere in October. Let's read this. Jeff says, I'm trying to do everything that you and other sleep experts have recommended, but I'm wondering, given that my sleep problem seems to also involve anxiety, panic, and grief, do any of the recommendations need to be altered to take into account insomnia comorbidities? In other words, by focusing solely on the sleep, are other things being overlooked that might change the recommendations? That's the first question. Another question, this night I've tried going to sleep at least 4 times, but sleep hasn't visited for very long. I think I'm asleep, but I'm waking up with the fear of waking up in the middle of the night, if that makes sense. It makes total sense. And now this night's sleep isn't coming. I'm too hyper-aroused with fear of waking up in the middle of the night. And that leads to fear of going to sleep because I will wake up again later in the night, so I don't go to sleep. So don't go to sleep is kind of the message. How do I untangle these unhelpful patterns? First of all, Jeff, I want to thank you for your questions. And this last part here is totally spot on. I think one way of looking at insomnia, I think it's completely true, is that you have become you become tangled in, you're entangled with thoughts, unhelpful thoughts, if you will. And this happens because the brain is like this safety machine and a problem-solving machine. It uses problem-solving to keep us safe. And when we start having trouble sleeping, it is intently working on trying to find connections, creating a narrative that makes sense. And it thinks of all kinds of things, could it be this, could it be that, should I do this, should I do that? And sometimes, this seemed to work, I'm going to keep doing this didn't work, I'm going to stop doing that. And then soon enough, you're entangled in all these beliefs that make sleep seem so complicated and complex, and you just can't get it right. So the work is all about untangling these thoughts. That is, just you wording it that way, I think shows a lot of insight. And so how do you, let's just briefly, it's a complex question, because it's really, the question is how do I not have insomnia, is the question of how do I untangle these unhelpful patterns. But one thing that I want to share immediately that I picked up from Alina here on the channel, she said this: sometimes when she got this idea that she slept better because she slept on the left side of the bed, she would purposely sleep on the right side. Sometimes when she felt that she didn't sleep because she had coffee in the morning, she drank more coffee. She purposely tried do the opposite of what her brain was kind of suggesting that she did. And I think that can be a really good way to untangle and to make sure you don't develop more entangling things. Just doing kind of the opposite of what your brain suggests, I think, is a powerful way of untangling. And so we commented on that. Now there's much more, of course. Let's start from the top here. This is a very common question, which is, if I also, in addition to having trouble sleeping, I have panic attacks, I have grief, I have depression, I have anxiety, then maybe this will not work for me. Maybe I should approach it in a different way. And I will say the opposite. I believe the complete opposite. I believe that these things all come from the same place. I believe, let's say, panic attacks come from not, from thinking that there's going to be like a catastrophic outcome when you have this like intense panic, and then you kind of like do things to save yourself, and it seems like I was okay because I did this, but that has just perpetuated the idea that something catastrophic was going to happen. So panic attacks are just the same as insomnia. Panic attacks are maintained episodes of panic, and that are maintained because you're trying to avoid something or escape something that actually never happens. It's the trying to escape a perceived threat that maintains panic attacks. Just like insomnia is the attempt at trying to escape a perceived threat, which is wakefulness at night. And anxiety is the attempt of escaping a perceived threat that is often very diffuse. You don't really know what the threat is, but you're constantly trying to escape it. You're trying to escape the feeling of anxiety. You're trying to make yourself less anxious, and then you have more anxiety. Or grief, I don't know about, because that's kind of grief that I think about, that's kind of a normal process, and it has like a time span, and grief just kind of is completely, is a little bit different. But let's say sadness or depression, that also comes from the same place of trying to, like, the more you try to escape feeling sad, the more sticky that sadness becomes. So I think when you learn about insomnia, you learn how you learn not to escape a perceived threat. That applies to everything. So I think, the more of these things that are going on, the more help you can get from, my teaching or a good insomnia program. So I think they're in no way, and by the way, most people that have trouble sleeping have some anxiety, some panic attacks, maybe OCD, maybe some depression too. Like, not everyone, but so many people do that I don't think a program needs to be altered at all. Absolutely not. So we'll get back to Jeff's question, but here's a live question from BFT. Hyperarousal is messing with me and has me confused. I'm sleeping now, but instead of building sleep confidence, it's making me nervous because I believe that I may not sleep. I fear not sleeping. I think about it all day, 100%. Completely understand this one. And so this, you're having a little bit of like, you haven't had maybe the regress yet, but what this sounds like is what I call success regress, which is, when you've had trouble sleeping for a long time, your brain has been thinking that being awake at night is a threat, and that's led you to have insomnia. But you've started learning, you're understanding, kind of like you're seeing that, okay, wakefulness at night is not a threat. You're sleeping better, but your brain hasn't, like, sleep is not off the radar yet. Like, sleep is not off the radar yet. The brain is still like, no. Sleep, not sleeping can be a threat. It can be a problem. It's shifted from like a big thing on the radar to maybe a smaller thing on the radar, and it's allowing you now to sleep, but it's not off the radar yet. And so what's happening is when you're starting to sleep better, that part of your brain that's there for safety goes, oh yeah, you're sleeping better, but you don't know, maybe you'll sleep. How long is this going to last? Is this for real? Or is there really nothing going on? Maybe you're going to have trouble sleeping tomorrow, maybe the next night, and what do you do then, et cetera, et cetera. So the brain is, again, trying to keep you safe, and it's trying to maintain that there is a problem, there is a threat, even when you're sleeping better. It's trying to, like, make sure you're not missing something, put it that way. And often what happens is somebody goes through these kind of periods where they're sleeping better for like 4 or 5 days, and then they have a sleepless night in part because they felt like, now I have something to lose. I've slept good for so long. How can this be maintained? Is this real? Is this going to be maintained? And then they don't sleep at all. And then weirdly, there's less pressure to sleep, and they sleep better again. And then they have that regress again. I call this success regress. So I just want to say, BFT, that nothing strange or unusual with kind of the thoughts you describe here. And I think the most important is to understand that the brain is always trying to keep you safe, and sometimes it gets confused. And now when you're thinking about it all day, I think what you intuitively want to do is, like, I want to stop thinking about sleep all the time. But then again, the brain is trying to keep you safe. It's trying to tell you, watch out for sleep. Sleep can be a problem. Think about sleep, blah, blah, blah. And when you go, no, I don't want to listen, it goes more into that. It's like, you're not listening. I'm going to talk to you more about sleep. I'm going to make you sure you pay attention to your sleep. So the key is always to listen to the brain when it sends you those thoughts. To like, okay, brain, you're telling me I'm not going to sleep at all. Maybe that will happen, but that's okay. I'll be fine. I'll get past that. And when you listen to your brain and maybe write it down, or just like visualize what the brain is trying to tell you, show the brain that you're willing to listen, that you're willing to go there, that you're not afraid, then eventually it gets kind of like, it says, okay, you're listening, so I don't need to like nag you all the time. And then, those thoughts by time become less and less. But I think, I'm super glad you're sleeping better. And I think confidence will come when you have slept better for a long time. BFT says, I too have panic attacks throughout the day. Will this get better? Today it was bad. My head was spinning and my entire body felt light and warm. Terrible. Totally hear it, BFT. And, panic attacks are, again, like we just talked about, they're very, very similar to insomnia, having a lot of anxiety, etc. A classic panic attack, I don't know if this, if you feel that this applies, BFT, but a classic panic attack is, it can be provoked by something. It can be like a phone call from somebody or whatever can like trigger it, or it can be like from no particular reason. You can feel like maybe tension in your body, a sensation, and then you think like, okay, here it comes. And then it kind of spreads. There's an escalation phase. Now you feel it all over your whole body. You may be like palpitations, sweating, feeling warm, feeling hot, feeling cold, like shaking, trembling, things like that. And it's like, okay, here it comes. Here comes the big one. Here comes that catastrophic event. I'm going to faint. I'm going to die. Something really bad is going to happen. And then you do that safety thing where you're like, take some deep breath, take some deep breath, take some breath, or you hold on to something, or you sit down, or you do something to save yourself. And what then happens is, you start feeling a little bit better, and you're like, oh my God, you passed, thank goodness. But what unfortunately has happened is that you've reinforced that there actually was something big and bad that was gonna happen that I saved myself from. So by kind of resisting that panic attack, kind of preventing it, quote unquote, preventing it, you've reinforced what the brain was thinking, that there is really something big and bad out there that you have to prevent yourself from. So the key to panic attacks is to not do the safety behavior. Like, here it comes. Okay, it's going to be a big one, but I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to take deep breaths. I'm not going to sit down. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to let it pass. I'm going to let it float through me, happen. And then when it passes, you didn't do anything. So it's like, oh, there was no catastrophic event. And then with time, you become less afraid of having another panic attack. When it comes again, you don't do anything again, and it becomes less intense. And over time, you see there was no threat out there. It's just the same as insomnia. So hang in there. Hope this helps, BFT. Hope this helps, and hang in there. Okay, so we'll go back to Jeff's question here. We answered a question about insomnia comorbidities. Another question: this night, I have tried going to sleep at least 4 times. But sleep hasn't visited for long. I think I'm asleep, but I'm waking up with the fear of waking up in the middle of the night, if that makes sense. Absolutely, it makes total sense. The first thing that comes to mind is like, I've tried going to sleep at least 4 times, and the most fundamental truth when it comes to sleep is, the more you try, the less you get. So if you go to bed and like, let's see if I can sleep, then you automatically start kind of self-monitoring, like, I feel sleepy, no I don't, my eyelids are heavy, no they don't, and then that attention will not allow sleep to happen. So I think it is much better to, like, if you feel sleepy, then you go to bed and you kind of like, you're not trying to sleep, you will allow sleep to happen if it happens, but if it doesn't, you have something else that you're gonna do, and try as much as possible to change wakefulness, being awake, from a liability to an asset. If you think about it as a liability, it's like, it's something I don't want to deal with, I don't want to have wakefulness, then the brain is going to think, yep, wakefulness is a real problem, and it's going to go into fight or flight. It's going to be more hyperarousal. It's going to send you more wakefulness. When you think of it as an asset, as, okay, I'm awake, and I don't necessarily want to be awake, but I am awake, I'm not going to fight that. I'm going to try to do something with this wakefulness that is purposeful to me. I'm going to finish this assignment, or read a book, or just like lie down and allow my thoughts to flow through me without judging myself. Anything that turns wakefulness at night from liability to asset will be hugely helpful. And the fear of waking up is very common, and then you don't want to go to bed because even if you sleep, you fear that kind of like intense awakening with like maybe full onset anxiety. Completely understandable, but again, like the more you don't want that to happen, the more it will happen. The more when you wake up, you're like, okay, I had that intense anxiety, I'm awake now, and I'm probably not going to sleep right now, and that's okay. I'm going to do this other thing until I feel sleepy again. And if I wake up another time, that's okay. Changing wakefulness to a friend is always the key. Always the key, really. Hope that makes sense, Jeff. And let's go to this one. Hyperarousal. I'm hyperaroused with fear of waking up. This leads. I think we did kind of touch on that, and in bold type here. I will wake up again later at night, so don't go to sleep. Yeah, we talked about this, and hope this made sense, Jeff. Let me know if it didn't, and if there are any follow-up questions. And with that said, let's move to an email from Faye. And Faye had actually sent an email in May, so I was happy that it had been actually May, June, July, August, like 4 months that Faye had been doing well. Let's read this. Hello, Daniel. I was doing great again, but the breathing exhale consciousness is happening again. I would be scared to forget to inhale again, and when that happens, it just wakes me up wide awake, kind of like the hypnic jerk, and feels like I can't sleep anymore. This happened after a binge drinking alcohol, so alcohol caused pretty bad anxiety and panic attacks after withdrawal, do you think? Also, I seem to just get back into insomnia mode after a couple of sleepless nights, and it's really discouraging me. Do you think this symptom is one of the hyperarousal thing? I'm planning to do some medication to get back some sleep, but any advice on how to tackle this and how to prevent myself from getting back into insomnia mode? I'm thinking of exercising more and drinking only in moderation. Faye, I'm super happy to have you back here, although, I wish, of course you were sleeping well, so you didn't have to email me, but that said, I'm very happy that you're here. I appreciate it. And here's the thing, like when you have been doing well, you've been sleeping well for a couple of months, then I think it is very, very important to attribute that to the right thing, meaning you really highlight like the true reason that you were sleeping well, which in my book is always you were less pressure to sleep. You were trying less. You were not forcing sleep. You were not doing anything to make yourself sleep, and that allowed sleep to happen. In my book, again, it is, once in a blue moon, you have somebody who doesn't sleep because, they're not worried, but they just went to bed like at 9 and they get up at 7 a.m. and they just think they should sleep all the time, but they don't, and they're not particularly worried, but they sleep a little, so they kind of have insomnia. And then you'll just educate them that you're just not sleepy at 9, so go to bed at 11, and then they sleep great. Well, in that scenario, well, maybe that person just didn't have enough sleep drive. They had a gas issue. They were just not sleepy enough. But that's very rare. I think insomnia in my book is always hyperarousal. It is always anxiety, stress, fear, worrying, overthinking, puzzlement, bewilderment, excitement. Well, excitement is rare, but all the other ones cause hyperarousal when your mind is in the alert state, and then that causes insomnia. So insomnia, hyperarousal, always the culprit. And when you slept well, it was because you were not doing, you were actually willing to have insomnia. Somebody who doesn't sleep at all, who goes to bed like, it is unacceptable for me to not sleep at least 7 hours. Like anything below that is unacceptable, totally unacceptable. I'm not willing to have any insomnia. And that person will have a lot of insomnia because they're so pressured to sleep. Faye, when you slept good for 4 months, weird as it may sound, it was because you were actually willing to have insomnia. You were like, you were not trying to get sleep. You were not trying to get a certain amount. You were actually okay with having insomnia. Weird as it sounds, you were not trying to sleep. You were okay with not sleeping, and that led you to sleep well. That is always the answer. And when it comes to insomnia, like big picture, and when it comes to, in my opinion, like these kind of like facets of insomnia, for example, like breathing, like becoming conscious, being scared of forgetting to inhale, then that easily leads you to what can I do so that I don't forget to inhale? And the more you try not forgetting to inhale, the more of a perceived threat there seems to be there, and the more trouble you have, right? The more you go into the direction of like, I can't actually forget to inhale to a point where that causes damage to my body. So if I forget to inhale, that's okay, that's acceptable. That is, that's not something I'm going to try to control or prevent. That's the way. Then you when you're not trying to resist it, there's things get better. That happens. That's the same with the hypnic jerks, hypnic awareness, and so many other aspects. So I think that's kind of number one. This happened after binge drinking alcohol. So alcohol causes pretty bad anxiety and panic attacks after withdrawal. I don't think so. I think alcohol is kind of sedating, so when it wears off, you may wake up feeling more alert. But anxiety comes from, as we talked about earlier, thoughts produce emotions. All our emotions are produced by thoughts. So withdrawing from alcohol, that makes you awake, but it doesn't produce thoughts that produce anxiety unless you start thinking about it. So if you start, if you had some alcohol and you woke up in the middle of the night, which was unusual for you, and you start thinking about your insomnia again, well, then those thoughts can produce a lot of anxiety. So I don't think the withdrawal from alcohol itself produces anxiety, because again, our emotions are always come from thoughts. I seem to just go back into insomnia mode after a couple of sleepless nights, and it's really discouraging me. No reason to be discouraged, in my opinion, because for someone that has never had any trouble sleeping in their whole entire lives, if they have like 3 sleepless nights, they may still think, this is odd, but I'm sure I'm going to sleep well tonight, and then they probably do, and they don't think so much more about it, right? But if you've had trouble sleeping and you have a couple of sleepless nights, then of course there's going to be many more thoughts there, like, oh my gosh, it's starting again, it's going to happen again, blah, blah, blah. So my point here is that if you've had insomnia, particularly in the recent past, your sleep is going to be a little bit more, quote unquote, vulnerable. The same amount of stress that produces like 1 sleepless night for somebody who's never had insomnia probably produces 3 sleepless nights in somebody who has had insomnia. And that is completely normal and expected. It will take, depending on how long you had trouble sleeping, it will take, quite a long time before your sleep confidence is solid and you can have a sleepless night without starting to think, oh my gosh, my insomnia is back again. So I wouldn't say this, that is completely expected in my book. So I don't think that's not anything to be discouraged about. It's completely normal. And do you think this is a symptom of a hyperarousal? It always is. Hyperarousal is always the culprit, I think, as we talked about earlier. I'm planning to do some medication to get back to sleep. But anything, okay. Let's talk about the medication later, but any advice on how to tackle this thing and how to prevent myself from getting back into insomnia mode? I heard we had a very similar question when my good friend Nick Wignall was here with me, and he said to prevent insomnia from happening, you have to be willing to have insomnia, which I started with earlier today. Sounds really weird, but when you start having trouble sleeping, and you've had trouble sleeping in the past, and you go into like, I don't want to have insomnia again. What can I do to prevent it? Can I do this? Can I do that? Then now you're resisting insomnia. Now you're trying to sleep. Now you're going to have more of it. When you go into like, okay, I haven't slept well for a couple of nights now. I don't want to have more insomnia, but if I don't sleep tonight, if I have more insomnia, that is okay. It's acceptable. I'm not going to do anything to try to prevent or avoid having sleepless nights. It is okay to have a sleepless night. It is acceptable. I'm just going to try to go about my day, enjoy my life, and when I'm awake at night, do something that is productive or enjoyable. I'm going to turn that wakefulness from a liability to an asset. I'm willing to have insomnia. That is the way. That is the way for this not to escalate. Weirdly, the more you try to fix it, the more problem you have. The more you don't want to have a setback, the more setback you have. Best relapse prevention, being okay with a relapse. That is always the case. And so when we read more here about like Phase planning to take some medications and plan to exercise more and drink only in moderation, Well, I want to say when it comes to all things sleep, the intent is the key. And I have like this kind of formula which says, like, when somebody's like, should I do X or not? Well, then I go, if the intent is to make yourself sleep, you shouldn't do it. If the intent is pleasure, you should do it. So I want to say, when it comes to like, should I take medication so that I sleep more? I think that's always a bad idea, because if you take a medication or supplement or anything like that, and you sleep no more or no better, you feel frustrated, but you are probably not gonna want to give up on it, because you feel like it still may help a little bit. I'm going to keep that. I'm going to keep looking for this other thing, and then you get deeper in the hole. You become more frustrated, etc. So that's the path towards frustration, which is no good. And if you take like a medication and it seems like you're sleeping better, that's the path of confusion, because now you think that the medication made you sleep, and as we talked about earlier in this episode, it doesn't. And then what happens is you take this medication, you sleep better for a while, then some other stress happens, and then it stops working. You take some other things. So I think the intent is always the important thing. If you're doing anything with the intent of that making you sleep, whether it's exercise or drinking less or medications or supplements or gadgets, if the intent is to make yourself sleep and escape insomnia, you're gonna have more insomnia. If the intent is, I'm gonna exercise just because exercise is a gift in itself. Drinking less is a gift in itself. Meditation is a gift. I enjoy that. I love that. And I have no thoughts about how that's going to affect my sleep. It's perfect. It's perfect. So those are my thoughts, Faye. Hang in there. Just let me know if there's follow-up questions. And with that said, I want to thank everyone who contributed to this episode: BFT, Jacinto, Jeff, and Faye, of course. So I'll be back again with more tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think I'm going to start picking up some of my natto concepts and starting going over those. So look forward to that. So anyway, again, hope to have you back here real soon. Until then, take it easy.